In this section, we are going to take some time to shift our focus and spend a bit of time looking at NLP. The idea of NLP, known as neuro-linguistic programming, was first developed by Richard Bandler and John Grinder in 1976. This is going to be comprised of 3 parts, including the neuro, which is going to focus on the neurology, the linguistics, that will reference back to language, and then programming, that will refer to the function of that neural language. These men spent some of their time studying 3 individuals and their ability to change up the feelings and thoughts that they had. Over the years, many have adopted these ideas, although there is some criticism out there that looks at the legitimacy of the study results. NLP is more of a thought, rather than a process that can be used on other people. It is more of something that you should concentrate on yourself. The basic ideas that come with NLP are that you want to change the thoughts and the feelings that are inside yourself. Doing this is great for those who would like some relief from things like depression, anxiety, and some of the other mental illnesses that are out there. These individuals may feel that there is a specific thought or another belief that is holding them back. And when they can make changes to these things, the individual can change their life. A good example of this would be when someone decides to make themselves believe that they like exercising, even if they disliked it ahead of time. Some people have found that using the tactics that come with NLP can bring them some success. But there are also those who have really criticized the capabilities of this process and how well it can work for those who choose to use it. There are going to be some benefits that come with neuro-linguistic programming, no matter what side of the debate you are on. But there are some issues because it can be used as a tactic for manipulation. NLP intends to be able to look inward, to figure out what makes the person unique and their person. The things that form the beliefs of that person are also going to indicate the quality of life they are going to have. The idea here is that by changing up these beliefs, it is easier for that person to change or improve different parts of their life. Some manipulators will learn about the NLP ideas and then will use these in more dangerous manners. These manipulators are going to use some of the tactics that come with NLP to try and convince their victims to do things that may harm the victim, but which are going to benefit the manipulator in one way or another. Now, you may be wondering how someone would be able to use the ideas of NLP to manipulate you. First, we need to take a look at what some of the tactics of NLP are, and then we can see that there are many ways that the manipulator can use this against you. There is some positivity in this way of thinking, so even for those who don't find this in their lifestyle in the form of manipulation, can find that practicing NLP, or at least learning more about how it works, will help them in different ways. Let's take a look at some of the parts that come with NLP in this section and why it can be such a powerful tool. How we receive information. The world that we live in is going to be carded based entirely on what we decide to put our focus towards. What we choose to put all of our energy towards is going to help to build up the foundations for what we think, feel, love, express, work, and do. So basically, the things that we put our focus on is going to make us into the individual we are today. And it is the reason that we are so different from everyone else in our world. We can see this just by looking at the different areas a person can live in. Someone who has always lived in California is going to see the world in a different way than someone who lives in rural Texas. These are both humans who live in the United States and may have been born there. They are going to have completely different lives, and this leads them to have different morals, beliefs, and perspectives. You are only going to notice what you tune your attention on and not what other people do. Your world is going to be so different than the one that is going on around you. For example, it is possible that you would work at the same place for years and have no idea how many car dealerships are present on the route that you usually take to get to work. You may take the same streets to the same place for work each day, every week, and for years at a time, and never realize that you go past 3 dealerships along the way. Then at some point in all of this, your car breaks down, and instead of repairing it, you decide to purchase a new car. Once buying a car becomes the goal for you, you may start to realize that there are that many car dealerships to check out. But before that time, the car dealerships were low on your attention, and you may not have even noticed. This is often why people will see signs. The signs that we think to point us in a specific direction is usually just going to be the mind looking for outside validation for something that we already want. For example, if you are considering whether or not it is time to have your first child, you may start to notice things around you that would relate to this. You may begin to notice how many baby commercials are on television, or notice that a woman is holding their baby on the boss. Seeing all these things may convince the person that they see signs and that it is time to have a baby. In reality, you have just told the subconscious to become alert to all things about the baby so that you can pick up the signs that are around you, helping you to answer whether or not it is time to have a child. Since you alerted the brain that it is time to think about these things, then it has become more aware of what is going on around it, and you are going to see things related to babies all around. It is incredible how much goes on around us. Because of this, the brain does block out quite a bit, or we would become overwhelmed in the process. We could go for years, maybe our whole lives, without realizing that there is something right in front of us. And then one day, we reach a trigger, and then we are alerted to this thing and are surprised at how we never noticed it before, just like in the examples above. Your personality profile. This personality profile is significant because it is what helps us to determine the information that we will store. Think about what are your hobbies, what are your interests, and what are your pet peeves. Think about what makes your skin crawl, what keeps you up at night, and what do you hope for in the future. These are some essential questions, ones that can make us unique individuals, and when they are all put together, they will make up our personality profile. We all come with our agenda. No matter how much we wouldn't think of ourselves in this manner, and whether or not we are aware of it in the first place, there are always some motives or some reasons that we do what we do. For example, if you want to be wealthy, or at least have enough money to live off comfortably for some time, then you are going to look for more ways to make money and to save money. And for some people who want to have money but don't want to work, you may start to look for the best way to take advantage of other people and use manipulation to get what you want. This goes to show that each person, no matter how pure their intentions, have a different reason, agenda, and motive for doing what they do. Your personality profile is going to determine how you will take in information, and then what you end up doing with any of the information that you do take in. The primary forms of consumption, including your social media, television, and internet consumption, can also take part in your personality profiles. The beliefs and the thoughts of your family and friends and what they share with you can contribute to the personality profile. And even the physical description of yourself, whether you are young or old, masculine or feminine, fit or fat, can all come together to contribute to what will be present in your personality profile as well. The animalistic nature of the brain. When we decide to take on some of the things that are around us, there are going to be some different questions that we may ask. For example, the first thing that we will often ask about some activity is whether or not it is safe. It is just instinctual for most people, even if they are not fully aware of it. The person may sense danger when it comes near, such as when they choose to not live in one area or another, or when they are near someone who makes them feel uncomfortable. The next question that you may need to ask about here is whether the task has any value. Putting a value on certain things will be different based on the person. You may value your job and your status in the work field the most, while someone may value their family or their free time more. But even with these differences, there is some level of questioning about whether something is worth the effort or the risk when you make any decision. You also have to determine whether the thing is going to help you accomplish your goals. Even if it looks appealing, even if others recommend it to you, and also if it can do some things. If that tool, idea, relationship, or job isn't meeting one of your needs, then it is not something that you should focus your attention on. these wants and needs are going to be derivative of our biology. We may want more money so that we can purchase food or pay for our housing so that we can survive. Of course, this is a pretty obvious one. Another natural reaction of the brain, one that may be a bit more subtle than the rest, is our desire to feel accepted and like we fit in. When we lived in a world, or our ancestors did, where forming these groups was necessary for the person to survive, we started to develop a natural urge to prove our worth. In a normal tribe, there were a lot of roles that needed filled, and each person would be able to prove their worth by fitting into one of these roles. They would be the security, the gatherers, the nurturers, the hunters, and any other part of that tribe thought of as essential for the survival of everyone. Not everyone could be the hunter, but everyone would have their worth, and they would do what they had to prove their value and make sure they were able to stay with the tribe and survive. We still have these kinds of desires, but they're going to be reflected in different ways. We still want to prove that we have some value, even though this isn't necessary for survival any longer. But we want to show this value so that other people are willing to keep us around. But some people in society will end up mistaking that. A woman could get some breast implants or other work was done to prove that she is beautiful, while putting too much value into her beauty and not on what makes her unique. The same can go for men. A man may choose to sleep with many different women to prove their masculinity. When we can understand more about our natural biology, that urge that exists in everyone to prove that they have a lot of worth and should be a part of the group, it can be easier to start the process of redirecting our thoughts and changing the way that we look at the world.